Hey guys, Kelade here. Now that patch 7.1.5 has been out for a few weeks, and there doesn't seem to be any additional classroom changes, here's my guide for Fury Warriors in patch 7.1.5. For the sake of making this guide easily digestible, we're going to ignore changes to your burst rotation when you acquire the Nighthold trinkets, mainly Convergence of Fates and Draft of Souls. Those two trinkets are going to be your best in slot trinkets, and I'll have a video after to fully dive into those. First, let's go over the talents. Due to the nature of the Nighthold fights and how AoE-centric some of the fights are, there are now a few more viable options in talents. In the first row, both War Machine and Endless Rage are great options. War Machine gives you 30% haste for 15 seconds after killing a target. You do not need to actually do the killing by yourself, but you do need to have hit the enemy in the last few seconds for it to count. Endless Rage lets your auto attacks generate 30% additional rage. The choice between these two talents is whether or not there are lots of adds for you to keep a good uptime on War Machine. If you are in a mainly single target fight, then Endless Rage is still the best option. For Mythic Plus, however, War Machine will generally always be your go-to. In the second row, Shockwave and Double Time will be your options. If you're running Mythic Plus, or if your raid needs your stun for a particular fight mechanic, take Shockwave. Even though the duration of the stun was nerfed from 4 seconds to 3 seconds, it is still one of the best AoE stuns in the game due to the lower cooldown of 20 seconds if you hit at least 3 targets. If Shockwave is not necessary, then Double Time is a great talent that gives us mobility in fights. In the third row, your choice is between Wrecking Ball and Avatar. Wrecking Ball is a great talent if there's consistent AoE in a fight, and Avatar is a great talent if there's burst AoE or if it's a single target fight. Unless the fight has a constant barrage of adds, or if there's continuous AoE cleave in the fight, then a well-timed Avatar will generally net you better results. Avatar allows us to control when our increased damage will come, and Wrecking Ball is a bit more RNG since it could just not proc when heavy AoE happens in a fight. If you have the Whirlwind Legendary Belt, however, it pushes Wrecking Ball slightly higher in value. In the fourth row, I would recommend taking Boundless Stride for added mobility that this spell gives. It reduces the cooldown of Heroic Leap by 15 seconds and gives you a nice speed boost after using it. The reduced cooldown really helps to have this ability up every time that you need it. In the fifth row, Frothing Berserker has taken over as a new talent to take in patch 7.1.5. With this talent, you gain a 15% damage buff along with a 30% movement speed buff for 6 seconds every time you hit 100 rage. This talent greatly increases your damage while the mob is at 100 to 20% HP. The alternative talent to take in this row is Massacre, but with how much AoE and ad switching there is in Nighthold, there are not many places where Massacre can outshine Frothing Berserker. I would recommend just going Frothing Berserker unless your group really needs that execute damage due to an enraged mechanic of some sort. In the sixth row, Inner Rage is the go-to talent. Nothing has changed in this row for patch 7.1.5. In the seventh and last row, Reckless Abandon is now the go-to talent. Not only does it generate 100 rage every time that you use Battlecry, but it also increases the duration of Battlecry by 2 seconds. This talent works very well along with Frothing Berserker since every time you use Battlecry, you automatically trigger Frothing Berserker. Dragon Roar was nerfed from 20% increased damage for 6 seconds to a 16% increased damage for 6 seconds. Because of this, we only take Reckless Abandon now. So to go over exactly what talent setups are run, what you see here is my single target talent build with Endless Rage, Double Time, Avatar, Bounding Stride, Frothing Berserker, Inner Rage, and Reckless Abandon. If I know there will be a lot of adds that I can kill to proc War Machine, then I'll take that instead. If I know there will be constant cleave / AoE in a fight, I'll change Avatar for Wrecking Ball. If I'm doing Mythic Plus, however, I would pick up Shockwave and go back to Avatar since burst AoE is generally more important in Mythic Plus. Picking Avatar here will allow me to put out more boss damage if needed. Now, let's move on to the rotation. Regardless of which 3 of the talent builds you chose, the priorities are the same. For your opener and cooldowns, your rotation is this. You want to charge in, activate your cooldowns. I have a macro that casts Avatar, Battlecry, and my Troll Rachel Berserking into an instant Rampage, then Raging Blow, Odin's Fury, Bloodthirst, and Raging Blow. You will have another GCD or 2 of Battlecry left depending on whether or not you have Lust, and you can just follow the single target non-cooldown priority at this point. Our single target non-cooldown priority remains very similar to patch 7.1, but there is a difference in that you never use Rampage unless you are at 100 rage, so you can proc the buff for Reckless Abandon. The priority would be Enraged Raging Blow, Rampage, only at 100 rage if you take Frothing Berserker, Bloodthirst, non-enraged Raging Blow, Fury Slash. For Execute Phase, it's also very similar to patch 7.1, and if you're taking the Massacre talent, it's actually exactly the same. The only difference in Execute Phase in patch 7.15 is if you took Frothing Berserker. Since you won't be getting any free rampages, you just never cast a single rampage in Execute Phase with this talent. Your priority becomes Enraged Execute, Bloodthirst, non-enraged Execute, Raging Blow, and lastly Fury Slash. Your goal here is to build as many Juggernaut stacks as you can while keeping the rage up. Ideally, as your Battlecry comes off cooldown, you want to be as low rage as you can be. Ideally 0 rage, since Battlecry gives you 100 rage. Your priority in Execute Phase with Battlecry is just Enraged Executes and Bloodthirst to keep enraged up. Once again, you never rampage in Execute Phase if you have Frothing Berserker. Also, don't worry about Frothing Berserker buff in Execute Phase. You only get it in your Battlecry window, and that's fine. For 2 to 3 targets, all that you would change about your rotation is to replace all of your Fury Slash casts with Whirlwind. For 4 more targets, you replace Raging Blow with Whirlwind casts in their priority. So your priority becomes Enraged Whirlwind, Rampage at 100 rage if you have Frothing Berserker, Bloodthirst, non-enraged Whirlwind. For AoE Burst, you're going to want to charge in, cast Whirlwind first to proc Meat Cleaver, pop your cooldowns, Rampage, Odin's Fury, and then continue your AoE rotation, prioritizing Enraged Whirlwind and using Bloodthirst to enrage during your BC window. For stat weights, check out my video about Pawn and Simulation Craft above in order to get the stat weights based on your personal character's gear. As a general guideline, Haste and Mastery are still our best stat, followed by Versatility and Strength, and then Crit. Once you acquire the 4-piece tier bonus from Nighthold, the value of Mastery goes up, and in some cases, it can be our best stat over Haste. Please do simulate your own gear in order to find the stat weights that works best for your character. For enchants, they're exactly the same as patch 7.1. The neck enchant is still Mark of the Hidden Satyr, the best cloak enchant is still the 200 strength one, and the best ring enchants are going to be 200 haste or mastery based on your character's stat weights. For gems, you want to gem accordingly based on your stat weights. It will either be 150 mastery, 150 haste, or 200 strength. Pick the gem that is valued highly for your character. Now, for consumables, you will of course still want to use strength flasks, but instead of Fishbowl special food, you want to either use haste or mastery food. This will either be a Zari salad or Nightborn delicacy platter. The stat squish that we saw in patch 7.15 makes secondary stats even more valuable than before, so those 2 foods have risen to the top over Fishbowl special. And that's it for my guide for Fury Warriors in patch 7.15. I'm also now regular streaming at twitch.tv/Kelade92. Links to that will be in the description down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe and comment if you have any questions. See ya!